We need to come to the conclusion, because it's obvious, that we currently, in the world today, have a vast majority of deeply controlled governments that are absolutely on the dark and evil side of things. They want this. They want chaos. They want fear. They want destruction. They want sickness. They want all these things. Hey Inspired Tribe, how's it going? It's Jean Nolan here, and I'm coming to you with an update on the Ukraine-Russia worldwide situation, global situation really. Now, it is almost impossible, and it is reminiscent of the early stages of 2020 when the new era came in, when the COVID era began. It is almost impossible to escape this, the reports, the news. It's everywhere. And what we really need to pay attention to is what we're going to talk about here. Because we don't know, none of us have access to the specifics. None of us have access to the inside scoop. None of us really know why right now, how right now, what triggered this at this moment. If we look into it as a specific, isolated event, we have no way of making any rhyme or reason of it. But as always, we need to go into a broader perspective. We need to look at the bird's eye view here, and we need to realize first and foremost that nothing is unrelated. That what seems like a random event here and a random event there is really all hugely intertwined and connected. And this is maybe the biggest aha moment for so many people when they realize that this situation didn't just escalate out of nowhere. It wasn't just a random series of events, and it wasn't something that just happened. It was designed to happen. It was meant to happen. That much is clear. And what we need to ask ourselves is, what is the perception that we're supposed to get from all the reporting? It's really, really easy, actually. I believe this is in most of the world, but especially in the Western world, it's a very one-sided black and white kind of reporting that's going on, and a narrative that is being spun and that's being beaten into people's minds. As I said, very reminiscent of early 2020 and of course the years following, where the narrative, the COVID narrative, was beaten into people's minds. And the same underlying emotion is being transported now as it was transported then. Fear, terror, worry, panic, all of these things. And that's what we really need to look at. If we really want to understand and understand what is happening in the world today, we need to see the bigger picture. We need to see what it does to us, or what it is supposed to do to us. And then we can step out of, oh, he's a bad guy, these are the good guys. It's not how this game works, and it's not what it's intended to do at all. And as much as everyone wants to be sympathetic and be on the right side of history and be with the right guys on this, and I see, especially on social media, I see the Ukrainian banners all over the profile pictures of people, and the prayers, and the, unfortunately, almost the scheduled things, because it's anytime something happens, there's a scheduled kind of series of events that's happening on social media. It's almost to be expected now. But be a little more careful with all of that. Be a little more careful with who you blindly support, who you side with. And we need to come to the conclusion, because it's obvious, that we currently, in the world today, have a vast majority of deeply controlled governments that are absolutely on the dark and evil side of things. And that these governments don't represent their people. They don't represent the vast majority of the interests, the hearts, the thoughts, the needs of the people. They truly serve a bigger agenda. And if we look at this bigger agenda, then you would say, well, what does this particular conflict have to do with the big agenda, which is this Agenda 2030, to bring people into a new society, to bring people into this China-style social credit, artificial intelligence society where we have centralized power and where your life can be switched on and off because everything is digital, because your whole world, your financial life, your medical life, it's all in one switch, and that can be digitally turned on and off, depending on if you behave, and if you do and behave in the ways that the the state wants you to. And so how do we not just navigate through this, because our daughter just asked us, do you think this is going to escalate into a global conflict? And the word escalate would imply that this is a series of events that leads to certain reactions, that leads to counter reactions, that gets bigger and bigger, and eventually maybe involves multiple nations or even continents. And that would almost imply that there's a natural progression of things, which there isn't. Nothing about this is natural. These are all designed narratives. These are all designed events. If you have been paying attention to the communication to the people over the past months, it was, and especially it's intensified over the last weeks, it was war, fear-mongering, war pushing. That's all that you heard. And it's like an inevitable funnel where it all leads to this one inevitable outcome, which is war. And you have to ask yourself, as a human, as a natural being that you are, with an intact heart, an intact soul, intact mind, who would ever want war? When you go into geopolitics, into diplomacy, into politics in general, you tend to begin to think that war in itself is an inevitable part of life. It's an inevitable part of our world, and it's bound to happen. And I have always refused to believe that. I didn't believe it was an inevitable part. I always believed it was a desired part on certain small groups that greatly profit in many more ways than we can imagine from a situation like this. So we're right now funneled into taking a side, which is clear. We need to take this one side. There's this one evil aggressor, this one evil guy that is now, moving in, wanting to take over a country. And we need to all side and make sure that we're on the right side here. But it isn't as simple as that. And it's definitely not true. Both sides have contributed to this. And in whose interest it really is, you have to just look deeper for that. Who benefits? And this is always the question, who really benefits? If you want to create chaos in the world, if you want to bring great instability, this would be a wonderful way to do it. You go to a place that is strategically very important. You go to a place that's geopolitically important. You go to a place that's economically important. And that is definitely the case when you look at Ukraine. It checks all the boxes here. So if you want to create instability, that's where you would go. It's right in the middle. It's Eurasia, between Europe and Asia. So you really check all the boxes here. Now, what can we do? Because, see, we can be glued to our TVs, and we can even turn on the mainstream news, which to me, it's like I can't even think about that. I do every now and then watch a clip to kind of see what the temperature in the room is there, but I would never expose my mind to such crap, manipulation, propaganda, and fear-mongering. But more importantly is, how can we affect this situation positively? Not just this situation, because this is where we really dealing with here is, and I've said this before, this is what this whole decade is about. These powers that want to lead us into this new, into this great reset, into this new way society is supposed to exist, they want this. They want chaos. They want fear. They want destruction. They want sickness. They want all these things. Because what the intention here is to bring you to your knees, where you're physically, emotionally, spiritually so depleted that you will accept a new order, that you will accept a new way of government, that you will accept a new form of society that that will solve all these problems miraculously. This is what is the intention here. And as I've said so many times before, we are programmed to look at these external leaders, to the presidents and the prime ministers for solutions. But look at your respective leader in your country. Look at the past 2 years. Look at the inconsistencies, the lies, the manipulation, the control, the tyrannical actions. Look at all of that. And we are still looking to the same people to solve the problems that they created in the first place. And that just doesn't work, As Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem from the same mindset that created the problem, but we're still here and we're still looking at these people that have the same mindset. And so the truth here is that we need to become leaders ourselves again. And we need to disconnect our mind from the outer narrative here. The thing is, we are now manipulated into getting emotionally invested in this situation. And why wouldn't we? Isn't it a human thing? You see bombs, you see bloodshed, you see conflict, and you are naturally inclined to get emotionally involved and to side with either justice or against injustice. And as humanly natural as this is, we are manipulated into this. Because the truth is that these types of events are happening every day in many regions of the world, and we never hear about it. The truth is that hunger, starvation, war, abuse, oppression, all these things exist in our world every day. But we do not see it. And why don't we see it? Why do we not see these things? Is it really about making you aware of conflict, or is it about manipulating you into a narrative? And this is what we need to understand. We are being manipulated, deeply manipulated. And so we need to detach. We need to become really local. We need to bring our attention to our immediate surroundings, to our family, to our community. What can we do to improve this here? How do we make ourselves independent? How do we set ourselves free and detach from these systems that are now in this cornered rat syndrome, where they're seeing that the world is awakening, and so they're pushing harder and harder and harder. And the thing is, I cannot do anything actively about this situation in Ukraine right now. I do not have the power. I'm not on the ground. So there's nothing I can do there other than contributing to more clarity around it. And more clarity means to me, we need to detach. We need to withdraw energy from this. The whole world is being manipulated into putting as much emotional energy into it as possible. So this conflict feeds, grows, and becomes bigger and bigger. And you would think, from a logical human standpoint, we're used to it, you'd think, oh, they would want to diminish and end the conflict. No. It's all inverted. It's all upside down. They want conflict. They want fear. They want terror. They want violence. Because it is a means to an end to them. That's how, it's so perverted, but that's how this mindset functions. And if we get invested in this, and I'm not talking be inhumane, be cold or not sympathetic, but if we get invested in a narrative, if we get invested in believing that things are exactly as they present them to be, then we contribute to this. And so we need to get really, really clear on that and really detach. And there's another side to this. if we don't realize that these theaters serve multiple purposes, including distraction. These are big distractions. Because every time all the focus is here, it's like the magic trick, right? I mean, this hand, right, it does something and you look at it, you get fascinated, while this hand really does what it wants to do, and it can do what it does. It can steal the cookie because this hand is distracting you and you're not watching. And there's so many things that this hand is doing right now that people are not seeing because they're watching. As always, governments are pushing through legislation that otherwise wouldn't be able, they wouldn't be able to push through. There's an unconfirmed deadline of March 1st for a new treaty of all UN members, and that new treaty supposedly comes from the World Health Organization, where all the countries that are in the UN and World Health Organizations are supposedly agreeing to a new treaty where they would centralize a response to a future pandemic, which would include, how they respond to it, how vaccines or medications are administered. So basically what this would mean is that the World Health Organization would kind of become a world government body in times of a pandemic, and they would steer all the reactions. They would steer how governments are supposed to respond to this. And if this treaty would go through as it appears to be, it would basically override the sovereignty of every nation's government, which sounds like treason to me. And it would basically establish a world government body in the World Health Organization. And I mean, given the extreme, unbelievable measures and reactions of the past 2 years, and given this, mob-style kind of communication from the World Health Organization, I cannot believe that the people of the world would actually support this. So it's really important that we pay attention. Apparently, there's a deadline with March 1st. Max Egan reported on this, to get on board with this treaty, and there's a ultimate deadline, which is May 2024. Now, that these discussions exist and that this treaty is kind of in the works, that was corroborated by mainstream media reports that I verified. The March 1st deadline I couldn't verify, but it wouldn't surprise me given how much attention is being given to this conflict in the Ukraine right now. So we have to become really vigilant and take the power back to us and ask ourselves, what can I do about my life, my community, my family? This is the place of power. Don't buy into the narratives. Don't buy what they're selling you, because they're selling you, and they're doing it for a reason. It's always for a reason. Remember, all of this is connected. Nothing is isolated. Nothing is random. It's all connected. It all works towards one goal, and that goal does not work for your benefit. That is not for our well-being. This is to the detriment of human society, to the detriment of humanity, of what it means to be a natural being on this earth. So, that's really it in a nutshell. I know people want to hear, this is the bad guy, this is the good guy, this is the inside scoop, this is the real conspiracy, this is the deep state, this is this. We don't know these things. So many times we've heard these stories and they never come to pass. They never seem to be true. And I understand that people want to buy into that. And I understand that people want to believe that there are these leaders hidden, these white warriors, white hats that are doing the good work. And I believe they exist and I believe they're doing it. But I believe you're one of them. And we have to be them. And we have to assume responsibility for our own lives and not wait for an external savior to come and save us. That's really the message here, and I believe this is why all these things are happening from a bigger standpoint, from a ascension evolution standpoint. These things are happening so we can finally take back our power, take responsibility, and really step back into it. I think this is really the message here. We need to step back into it. and not give our power away anymore. And I know it's hard because we've been used for such a long time to do that, but that's really what we need to do. So this is a little longer than anticipated update on this situation, and we're probably going to go into some of the details. But we need to understand, the more we can step into bird's eye view, the more we can see what is really playing out and how we can really positively affect this. And that is here in your life, your situation, your healing, your leadership. Thank you, Inspired Tribe, for watching, and we'll be back very soon.